Hello, my name is Tara Wallace, and today I'm going to be teaching you about fundamental movement skills, specifically the ball bounce. Lindsay Broomfield defines fundamental movement skills as movement patterns that involve various body parts and provide the basis of physical literacy. Fundamental movement skills are the foundation movements or patterns to the more specialised and complex skills used in play, games and specific sports. Physical literacy describes the ability of a person to instruct the body to perform an action accurately and with confidence, and to recognise the physical, social, and cognitive and emotional attributes required to do so effectively. There are three categories of fundamental movement skills: stability, which is also referred to as non-locomotor skills, locomotor skills, and manipulative movement skills. Stability involves balancing the body using static and dynamic postures while maintaining equilibrium. These include motions such as landing, bending, stretching, twisting and turning, and form the basis for all locomotor and manipulative skills. Locomotor skills involve transporting the body in any direction from one point to another. For example, walking, running, jumping and hopping. These fundamental movements require practice and a good basic technique. These skills are then transferred to sporting games. And finally, we have the manipulative movement skills, which involve controlling objects either by hand or foot. They consist of fine and gross locomotor skills used for manipulation of objects. Gross locomotor manipulation skills include giving and receiving forces, for example, throwing, catching, kicking and bouncing. Whereas fine locomotor manipulation skills are activities that emphasise precision and accuracy when handling objects. These include cutting with scissors and playing the violin. Why is the ball bounce a fundamental movement skill? The ball bounce is a fundamental movement skill and is essential for the physical development of a child, as it helps hand-eye coordination and improves peripheral vision. When a child becomes confident and competent with bouncing a ball, they can develop sport-specific skills and increase the complexity of the skill. Mastering a skill can significantly increase a child's emotional and social development, as it increases a child's self-esteem when they can successfully complete a task. And in this case, a ball bounce can relate to many sports. For example, basketball, which would allow the child to make friends within his or her team, inside or outside of school. Bouncing a ball is essential in many team sports, including basketball, netball, football, tennis, and more. What age should bouncing be taught and why? Bouncing should be introduced when the child is in grade 1 and should be mastered by grade 3. The equipment needed is a ball of any size, and be sure to check the environment before you begin. Key teaching points. When performing a ball bounce, the following points are important to remember. 1. Eyes focus forward throughout the bounce. 2. Contact the ball with the fingertips of one hand at about hip height. 3. Wrist and elbows bend, then straighten to push the ball downwards. 4. Hips and knees slightly flexed during the bounce. And number 5, the ball bounces in front and to the side of your body. When teaching beginners, it's important to start learning in a stationary position with feet shoulder width apart and knees a little bit bent. If bouncing with 2 hands, aim to spread your fingers either side of the ball. And if using one hand, make sure it's on top of the ball with your fingers spread. Extend arms to push the ball downwards towards the ground with enough force for it to rebound so you can continue this motion. When you get the gist of this motion, you can encourage them to look forward or upwards rather than looking down at the ball. Ball bouncing environment. The environment where you bounce the ball can contribute to how well the ball bounces. Students should be on a dry, even surface, which is away from other students and equipment to prevent injuries. If the ball bounce is taught in a school environment, make sure the students are spread out when in the learning process so they can work on their own ball control. Positioning of teachers and students. The teacher should be standing next to or in front of the student for demonstration purposes. This way, the teacher is able to focus on the student and correct their technique and help the student improve. If the teacher is standing behind the student or is too far away, it will be more difficult to correct any mistakes the student may be making, as they won't be able to focus much attention to detail. There are many common errors of a ball bounce, with the most prevalent one being slapping at the ball instead of pushing downwards. This occurs when fingers are together rather than spread out, and can be fixed by spreading out fingers, which makes the action a lot smoother. Some other common errors of bouncing a ball include inconsistent force applied to the downwards push, inability to move and continue bouncing the ball, which often comes with practice and experience, failure to focus on and to track the ball effectively, and the inability to bounce without visually monitoring the ball. In the last couple of videos, we incorporated feedback into the common errors of a ball bounce. When learning a fundamental movement skill, it's important that the teacher provides children with feedback in order for them to improve. It's important to use constructive criticism and an approach such as 2 positives for 1 negative. This means that you give the child a compliment, then constructive criticism, and then another compliment. This style of feedback allows children to feel good about the parts of the skill they're doing well at and helps a child overcome any faults. It's crucial for feedback to be specific and followed up with a demonstration to make sure the child understands what's expected compared to what they've been doing. Modifications. Modifications may need to be put in place as children learn at different rates. In the initial stages of learning, it might be a good idea to use a larger ball that won't require as much force as a basketball. Once the skill has been mastered, there are many ways we can complicate it, such as bouncing the ball with both hands, running while bouncing the ball, which is called dribbling, bouncing it through your legs, behind your back, or incorporate it in sport-specific games. Instructional strategies. When learning any fundamental movement skill, it is crucial for students to be in a stimulating learning environment. This engages students and encourages them to do their best, which makes it easier for them to learn. An example of an instructional strategy is tabloid sports. If we walked into a tabloid physical education class, we would see a number of different situations with a certain number of students at each station, all focusing on a certain fundamental movement skill. This is a good method because students spend a specific time at each station before moving on to the next activity, allowing them to have something to look forward to and to not get bored of the station that they're at.